As a guy who really likes watching films, one of my biggest regrets was not watching Interstellar when it came in cinema in 2014. I remember the posters for the film all over my town and being directed by Christopher Nolan written on them, but for some reason I haven't watched the film. I watched the year after in 2015 and I absolutely loved it. At the time it was one of my favorite films. I loved the story, I loved the visuals, and just the idea of this giant space exploration with black holes, big waves. It was so interesting for me, and I thought that the characters were excellent, music just fantastic, everything was pretty great. And as the time went on, obviously I discovered more Nolan films, find the new ones that I liked better, and watched many more films. And now it is not one of my favorite films, obviously, but I still absolutely loved it. But as the time went on, I discovered that Interstellar is a pretty divisive film. Many people loved it, many people hated it, and I obviously love it, but I think that Interstellar is kinda underrated, and not in a sense of how well it did on box office or of how high IMDb score it has, but generally underrated among the Nolan films, because I think that although it is not as good for me as Memento, Dark Knight, Inception, or Prestige, I still think it is a great film and that it did something that no other of these films did, taking emotions as the center of the film. And what I'm trying to say, Nolan generally doesn't focus on emotions as much as some other great directors. His characters usually have some emotional connection with some persons, their drive, but we never see this connection. And I'm taking Memento, Prestige, and Inception as an examples. In Memento, we see Leonard who is trying to get revenge for the death of his wife, but we don't see the relationship with his wife. In Prestige, Angier, or sorry if I kind of mispronounced that, he goes on a revenge magic trick quest because of the death of his girlfriend, and we never see the relationship with his girlfriend. And in Inception, thanks God, finally, not because of the death of his wife, but there is a dead wife here, the character of Cobb goes on a quest of doing this Inception mission because he wants to reunite with his kids. And again, we obviously don't see his relationship with his kids. And I'm not saying that this doesn't work in those movies, because obviously those movies are all great, and I said it already, all these movies I like better than Interstellar, but Interstellar actually for once shows us the emotional tie of our main character with his important person, in this case his kids, and then going on a mission. And I think it is a very interesting thing because Nolan obviously never did it up to that point, and that is why I think Interstellar is underrated. But how exactly Nolan does it, and that is what I want to talk about in this video. Well, first by giving his whole first act to Cooper and his family. While usually in Nolan films the emotional scene or comes at the end of the film, with Cobb talking with his wife in his dreams, or Angier in Prestige explaining love for his craft, in Interstellar we see at the beginning relationship Cooper has with his family. And for the first time in all of his films, Nolan finally lets his characters talk like normal people. Obviously, he presents his ideas through the conversations between Cooper and the scientists, but it doesn't go beyond that. The focus on the story is on Cooper and his family, the conversations between them, the sorrow that he's leaving them behind, and finally in a Nolan film, emotions aren't discussed about but experienced. Compare that to other Nolan films, first act is usually left for exposition, the rules of the film, and the general information about our characters. And I'm not complaining, it works in those films, I'm just really happy that Interstellar did something different. The first act of the film made me invest in the relationship Cooper has with his kids, which is his driving force in the film. Compare that to the Inception, Cobb also does all he does because of his kids, but you really aren't invested in that relationship and that drive of his character as much you're invested in the mission itself. You're interested, can they pull off this impossible task in Inception? And here is where Interstellar really starts going. The second act comes, and there is a giant payoff for that first act. After getting off the wave planet, Cooper witnesses the years of messages from his children, and this is by far the most emotional scene that Nolan has ever crafted. No dialogue, just Nolan letting Matthew McConaughey give his all in a scene, and he truly does it. He portrayed a man who will experience the whole life of his children in the next couple hours, getting a grandson, then losing him in a second, watching all ups and downs of his son, and seeing what kind of man his son has become. Watching all that while smiling and crying at the same times, with a feeling of sorrow and happiness, McConaughey is magnificent in that scene, and his performance did not get enough praise. And watching that scene even today, it still hurts. And no matter what Cooper pushes forward in hopes of saving his children, black holes, relativity of time, love all those things in Interstellar, and they are just impressive sights to witness, but in the center of a film it is a relationship between father and his children. And I'm not saying this film is perfect. Christopher Nolan and his brother Jonathan did have a few slip-ups in the screenplay of the film. I'm specifically talking about conversation between Cooper and Brand about love transcending time and space, a scene that is unusually cheesy for a Nolan film and the one that I truly felt didn't fit the film at all. Many people had problem with the ending because Cooper connected that philosophy that Brand has to his love with Merv and the Tesseract that he was in, and I completely agree that was really unnecessary for the film. And I always had a problem with Cooper only asking about Murph at the end of the film, is she alive, and not about Tom. Again, those are the problems to the film, but I think it is understandable when you consider that this is the first time for Nolan dealing with such concepts as emotions, strangely in that way. At the end of the film, Murph sets Cooper on another journey to some distant galaxy to find Brand, and I would truly like if Nolan could do the same thing, to do something else from his usual stuff. I will always love that he does all he does, these ideas and concepts. He does the things that no other director in Hollywood does, but I truly think that he needs something like Interstellar again. Looking at the trailers for Tenet, I think that it will be another of his kind of films, but when he again tries something different, something in combination with his usual ideas, I would think that we'll witness something that will not just push his boundaries, but also ours. And this is all I wanted to say about Interstellar. I just wanted to give a little more spotlight to one part of the Interstellar that I kind of think is unappreciated. So next video I'll hope will be about Tenet. So till I see it, I hope you have a good day. Bye.